Okay, YouTube, this is how, so I took a regular wrist board. This is my wrist board that I have. And I loved, I don't know if this is for anybody that did the Xbox 360 and did the Risk factions with the cats and the humans and the Yetis and things like that. And I figured out how to make it into a board game because it's one of those Risk games that you just really like, and I liked adding it to this, and I just figured out how to add it to this regular Risk game. And so I'll kind of go over it. And I also combined like Risk Legendary. If you've ever played Risk Legendary, then you'll understand. Like Risk Legendary, you put the stickers out on the map and they're permanent, but this way I got these little wooden tiles, and so then I can rearrange the map, and so the map's never the same, and it changes things up and kind of makes things really interesting. So I'll kind of go over everything. So the city tiles, those come from Risk Legendary, and the major city population tiles, those come from Risk Legendary. But I like to throw them in this equation just because it really does make it fun, because it adds population. And so it's not just who controls the continental bonus, but it's also like how many cities do you control, because this adds 1 to your population. So if it's down here in Argentina, then Argentina is worth 1, and then this is worth 1, so you get 2 for holding Argentina, 2 population. Same with like the major city. If it's down here, Argentina is 1, and then this is 2 because it's a major city, and I get that from Risk Legendary. So you don't have to play with those if you want to play just the regular Risk factions. But like Risk faction has like a volcano and the dam. I haven't figured out a good way to like really do the dam, but just the easiest way. So like having to mine stuff. So I did the volcano and the mine. There's really no good way to like do the dam. Like the volcano definitely works better in this scenario, but you can do the dam if you really want to, and you just have a stationary spot to put out. And then the temple, where it has 3 tokens where you can possess stuff at. And then you've got the 4 crypts, so you can freeze a territory. And then you've got the 4 barracks, and then the missile, and then you have the color capitals. And so I just went through and I wrote down everybody's capital. And then of course you've got all the objectives. So like your starting maneuver, I just went through and wrote down everything. So your starting maneuver, guaranteed card, additional maneuver, attack and defense dice, plus your troops, and then your airfields, depending on how many. And you don't, if you played Risk faction, you know that you only have like a handful of these that you play with. So I might play with like, I might just randomly, flip them over and draw 4 or 5 of these blindly, and then that's what I play with. I might play with all of them, but that's what I loved about Risk factions is you could, it changes up and it changes. So you could play with all of these, or you could play with just a couple of these. And so that's what made it really fun. And then along with the Risk Legendary, so I did kind of like combining it, and I like to play with all of this because it really does make it really fun. But what I did here is this comes from the list. So like naming a continent, you get a +1 to that continental bonus. So if I put it in, so I can like name Africa, and then if I hold it, I get a +4 instead of a +3. And again, this comes from Risk Legendary, if you've ever played Risk Legendary. Spoiler alert, I hope I'm not ruining Risk Legendary if any of you have ever played it. It's kind of a fun version of Risk, but don't let your friends get to Alien Island, because they'll ruin everything you work hard for. And then this is a plus or minus to a world continental bonus. So like if somebody holds Australia, you could get this and then do a minus on that. And this token kind of comes from like Risk Online, because I know you can minus continental bonuses, but then I make this an objective, something you can achieve. So there's somebody that's like fortifying up in Australia, you could get this objective and drop it down to 1 troop instead of 2. So it does make it kind of evil, but at the same time kind of nice. And then I just have, a +1 and then a -1. So this one's a plus or minus, and this one's name a continental bonus. So you can name a continental bonus and then +1 to a continental bonus. So I could name Africa, whatever I want, and then I could add 1 to it. So I could actually get 5 for just holding Africa. So that's really nice. And then in Risk Legendary, same with like the city tiles. And Risk Faction has like cities, but I don't have that many. But I just decided to do 10, and then I did 5 major cities is how many I did. But they have, the Risk Factions has 4 crypts and frozen, and then 4 barracks, and then a missile tile. And there's a world city tile in Risk Legendary, and it's worth 5 population, and so I make this one objective, and that's really cool because this tile, this just holding this one thing, and like you could put it down here in Argentina, that gives you 1 troop and like 1.5 troops just holding Argentina with this world tile. So that's a pretty cool tile, and it's pretty boss. But and then these, how I decide like what the objectives are to them, because if you've ever played Risk Faction, you know that the objectives for these things change by game to game, and so then that's where this stack of numbers comes in. And so I've just got random numbers, kind of like Catan. So I'll just run through and throw like numbers next to them like so, and I'll just kind of space it over here and then put numbers down here. But here, just for example, like guaranteed card is number 12. So I've gone through and I've wrote down everything, and you can pause it if you want to write this down. Most of these objectives come straight from Risk Factions, but some of them are added onto by like Risk Legendary, like control 7 cities, control 10 cities. Those come from Risk Legendary. So then I would come here to number 12, control Asia territory. So then to get the guaranteed card, I'd have to hold Asia. So it's pretty easy. And then, so it's pretty straightforward setup for the objectives. And then, so I just have them numbered like that. And then the attack dice and defense dice, how I did that. So your risk comes with 3 normal red dice. I don't know if you can see this dice. It's a little bit different than the other ones, and it's rounded, and these are kind of more square, so that way I got a different dice, so whoever gets the attack dice gets this dice. And then the defense dice, I just found this black dice, so then you can add that for your defense dice, and that's how I do the attack and defense dice portion of it, adding it to the system. As far as placing these all out and how I do that is I just take the stack of cards, these stack of cards, and I just flip them over one by one. So then I'm like, Egypt gets a city, and I just pile these in one big stack just like this, and I just take them. And so then the next one, you know, Western Europe, you know, it gets a tile, and I place it, and so on and so forth until I've placed all of these things out, and it just randoms up the board. And how I do the volcano is, say the volcano gets put in Ukraine, then I've made several of these mine tokens, and so then I'll just place them in a circular motion. So then I'll place a mine token here and a mine token there and a mine token there, and you know, so on and so forth. Or say it gets put in Japan, then I just do mine tokens to these 2 places. So that's kind of how I do the volcano. And the volcano is kind of a wild card, and it's really nice that it changes locations, because sometimes it gets put in like Greenland, so then it makes it super hard to hold everything in like Europe. So it's kind of a wild card, because if anybody knows, the volcano erupts randomly, and the game does it so you can kind of plan it around a little bit more. But how I did the volcano is at the beginning, so the first player goes, and then, you know, however many players go, and then when it comes back to the first player's turn, if somebody's on a volcano and they have more than 2 troops, then I just roll the dice, and if I get a 6, 5, or 4, then the volcano erupts. And if it doesn't, if I get, you know, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, or 3, 2, 1, then it doesn't erupt. And so that makes it more unpredictable and makes it harder. And I do like that way of doing it, because the game, it would like slowly build up, and so slowly build up, and so you could like plan it out. So you could put troops in there, where this one makes it way more risky, way more volatile. And so I do actually like that. It's really, really nice, actually. I've played it several times, and the volcano is kind of a wild card. Same with like the barracks and the missile. The missile, I randomly place the barracks throughout the whole map and the crypts. And if you've played Risk Faction, then you know if you hold 3 crypts, then you get to freeze a territory at the end of your turn. But if you hold all 4, then you complete an objective. Same with the bear axes. If you hold 3 bear axes, then you control the missile. But if you control 4 at one time, then you achieve an objective. But you only need to have 3 in control at the end of your turn, and you control the missile. And the missile, I just let play, you know, wherever, kind of like the volcano, and it adds a really big curve, because sometimes it's gotten placed like down here in Central America, and all the bear axes are over here, and I'm coming in here to take it away from somebody, and so I get a +1 coming into the missile. So that does really add like a really nice kind of curve to it. And then the temple, how I've been doing that so you can possess or take over a territory is I just leave the other 2 out of the stack. So I leave them out with the mine tokens. Like I don't put the mine tokens, and I only put 1 temple piece in, but then I have 3 temple pieces. So wherever the temple gets placed, so say, you know, it gets placed in like Ukraine or something like that, then I'll take the other 2 and I'll just put them next to it like that. And so the temple piece, and then if I draw any of those, if I draw these other 2 countries for like cities or anything else, then I just draw a different card because I've already got temples on there. Or if there's already city stuff on there, then, you know, I'll flip it around and do it the other way and do the temple stuff over here, or I'll do like those 2 over there. And that's really cool because sometimes the temple's like in 2 different countries like that. Sometimes it's just in Asia, sometimes it's down here in Africa, and that throws a really nice curveball. I've actually played this a ton, and there's only like 1 time the temple was like in control for like multiple turns. Like it gets, you know, it gets taken, everybody takes it over, and so I like that because it makes it way easier to take it over because it's just randomly throughout the whole map, and so it makes it really easy to take it over. And then I did the population and everything. I don't know if you guys want to freeze that, but I'll kind of like go over it. So 1 to 11, and I don't know if you want to freeze that so you can write it down, but it's territories plus population. So if you control 1 to 11, you get 3 troops. 12 to 14, you get 4. 15 to 17, you get 5. 18 to 26, so on and so forth, and it just goes down the line. And I've gone all the way to like 75 population, because like somewhere in the 60s, like if you have all the cities and all the major cities and the world city, you can get up here to like 60 something, 70 something population, and it gets crazy. So that's how I do the population. And then the coins, because if you remember, Risk Faction deals off with the coins, and my set does with the 3 of a kind or 1 of each. So how I've done this is the troops are just 1 point, the horse cards are basically 1 coin, and then the cannons are the 2 coin cards. So if you draw a cannon, so that's how I've just kind of changed it up. And so then of course you've got your standard 2 coins is 2 troops, 3, 4, so on and so forth if you want to pass it. So this is just your number of troops and then the coins, and it's just straight out of the Risk Faction game. So I hope this kind of helps you guys out and kind of adds a little. That's how I've done the Risk Faction, making it out of just a regular Risk board. I hope you guys like that. I've really enjoyed playing it. It really makes a really interesting game. Kind of changes everything up, and I like that it's not permanent like Risk Legendary. Once you put stuff on that one, everything's permanent, where this one I can move stuff around, and the game and the board changes from time to time every time you play it. And so none of the objectives are always the same, none of the cities are in the same place, the temple's not in the same place, so it really kind of throws a wild card and makes things really interesting and very fun. But like always, like your volcano and mining, if you have more than 1 troop, and if the volcano erupts, you lose all but 1 troop, so on and so forth. And then like the frozen tile, you can't move in or out of. You guys should know all these rules, but I don't know if I need to go over those or not. And the capitals, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Like those are just, you just get 1 point for holding your capital, and then if you take over somebody's capital, then you get the +1 troop at the beginning of the turn, but then after you control so many of these in Risk Factions, then you achieve an objective. But so that's how I've done it. It's pretty easy. I do like it. Hope that helps people. I've just enjoyed Risk Factions when I was a kid and a teenager playing on the Xbox 360, and so I was trying to figure out how to make it into a board so me and my friends could play it. And this is what we've come up with, and we've played it several times, and me and my friends love how it's random and changes up. So that's how I did it. Okay, have a good day. Bye.